Okay. So, dealing with obstacles to our meditation practice. What kind of obstacles do you have?
Drowsiness.
Okay, hold on. Is there a pen here? Everybody cleaned everything out so well. No. Aha. I have a pencil. Okay, so drowsiness. Yeah. Okay, I think I have that one in here already. Yes. What other?
Distraction.
Yeah. You mean distraction just to getting to the hall?
No, distraction thinking about the Buddha hall.
Oh, thinking about other things that are going on. Okay. Yeah, what else?
Anger.
Okay. So you sit down to meditate on bodhicitta, and you're going, these sentient beings. Yeah. What else?
There's a couple in the chat line, Venerable, making time and making it a priority, and anxiety.
Hi. Okay, let's start with those. Okay, I wrote down a few other ones too, and kind of put them in two groups. One being the inner hindrances that kept us from doing the practice, and the other being the external hindrances. Yeah, because they're both. Some of them are our own distractions, our own impediments, and others are the conditions that we encounter in the world or in our life. Yeah, and often sometimes we only appreciate those external conditions when they're not very good. But when they're good, like we have enough food and clothing and shelter and medicine, we forget that, we have that going for us. Yeah, we don't appreciate it. But when we lose it, then we see how it becomes a hindrance. Yeah. Okay, let's start with some of the we'll jumble them up, the internal and external ones. I was saying to the people here, not just recently, that I think one of the main hindrances we have to Dharma practice is a lack of interest. Yeah, in other words, most of the people here are fairly interested in Dharma, at least interested enough to start watching this talk. You may partway through get bored and turn it off and want to watch something else instead that's more interesting. But I think, our Dharma practice really begins with us having interest. Yeah. And that means that it's touching some part of us that all the other things we do in the world are not touching. Yeah. So you may go to work and have, be very successful in your work and make a lot of money, be well respected in society, have a family, and everybody's, normal, and your family looks great, and you have good health, and you have everything like that. And people would look at your life and say, wow, you are really fortunate. And you'd still have many things to complain about. That's the thing. Whatever our situation is, there is something to complain about. I mean, we love complaining, don't we? Yeah. It's the poor me, I deserve more, I should have more, the universe owes me. Okay. But if we have a real interest in the Dharma, then it becomes much easier to deal with these mental states that distract us from practice, and also with the external situations that can impede us for practice. Because the more, the greater the intensity of our interest in getting out of samsara and benefiting sentient beings, the more energy we're going to have for practice. Yeah. So a lot of that interest comes from previous lives, what we cultivated in previous lives that we dedicated to have that kind of interest in this life. And then some of it, of course, is generated in this life when we study the Dharma and we find things very interesting, or we discuss the Dharma with our Dharma friends, and it really helps us, and the light turns on inside and we understand things that we didn't understand before. So all of that creates interest. Okay, now let's say you have interest, but you have a chronic illness. Okay, so the chronic illness can become an external hindrance. Yeah, you really want the Dharma, but it's hard for you to get to a Dharma center. You're in a wheelchair. Yeah, you can't afford drive your own car with the gas and the brakes on the handlebar. It's difficult for you to get in and out of your wheelchair, and you have this great interest, but there's a definite physical hindrance to that. Yeah. Now, I think it's very important here. How do you deal with that hindrance? Yeah, some people say, oh, it's just too difficult to get to the center to do anything. So, I'm just going to forget about Dharma for right now and focus on the things that make me happy, because it's really important right now that I keep my mind happy. Okay? So many people, I think, make that decision, and you can understand why. Yeah. Other people are going to say, yes, I have that hindrance, but, I'm going to find some way to go and get teachings, live teachings. And if I can't do that, somehow, listen to them on Zoom, even though I don't have a computer, and that person will make a lot of effort to do something with the external situation so that they have access to the teachings, and therefore, can construct an actual practice. Okay, so you can see one person can have the same external physical hindrance, but depending upon their level of, external physical hindrance, but depending on their level of interest and enthusiasm for the Dharma, some will ignore the hindrance and do what they can, and other people will just throw up their hands and say, well, too bad. Okay, and back away. So when we look, there's so many external hindrances that we can come across like that. And this is why it's so important to practice the mind training teachings, because they teach us how to think when we face these kinds of hindrances. And for sure, in our Dharma practice, we're going to have times when we're sick or injured, or who knows what's going to happen. Our lives have been kind of going along okay now, but the world's kind of pretty crazy. And even if it looks stable, everything's changing moment by moment, and we can't control all the change. Yeah. So, the mind training practice really helps us think about, or helps us to have different ways of looking at the situation. Yeah. So you might, another person might have a chronic illness. Maybe their hindrance isn't so much not being able to get to a Dharma center or be near Dharma friends physically. Maybe their hindrance is because they're sick, they easily get discouraged. And they think, oh, I'm sick and I can't do much. And, I just can't get it together because, I'm in my wheelchair, or, my back's out, or my stomach, I have ulcers, and all this is constantly disrupting my practice. Okay. So somebody may have that, but if they practice the mind training teachings, then they'll think, oh, that's okay. I don't feel well, but that's due to my own negative karma, but that is burning up that negative karma. And so in that way, even I can't practice in the way I want to by going to the center, but I can practice by really rejoicing that my negative karma is ripening now. And it could have ripened in a lower rebirth that lasted for an eon or two, but right now it's ripening in this way. I can actually handle the situation. Okay, I don't feel good, but compared to winding up in a lower rebirth, I can handle my present situation. Yeah, and so just thinking like that, that person is practicing the Dharma right then and there. Yeah, through their attitude. So this is quite important to remember. Otherwise, the external things can just make us so confused about what do I do? What do I do? Yeah. Okay, other external things. Political problems in the country. Yeah, this at lunchtime today, a few of us were discussing the situation in Russia and the repression that people are experiencing. We have a very dear Dharma friend who is with a group. He leads the group in Russia, and we're very concerned for his welfare, for the welfare of everybody in the group. Yeah. Somehow, with our friend in particular, who's also a monk, we said, come here, we'll do everything we can to get you here. That's not a problem. But he wants to stay there. At first, his reason was so that he can, there's a group of Dharma practitioners in Russia and Ukraine, and he guides them over the internet. They do meditations on Zoom and things like that. It's really remarkable, to practice the Dharma over Zoom in Russia, because things, Putin, after this abortive uprising a few weeks ago, he's really started to crack down on things. Yeah. So, there's political problems in your country, and they could be quite severe where you yourself are in danger. And that can also happen in this country when you look at the political situation and what one particular candidate is saying he wants to do if he's elected again. It's rather frightening. Yeah. So how are we going to deal with that if that happens? Yeah, are we going to pick up and go to another country? Are we going to stay here and see what happens? What do we do with our mind in that situation, even more than the external decision we make? How do we keep our mind in a balanced state. Yeah. I mean, and thousands, not thousands, hundreds of countries right now are in political turmoil. And there's probably Buddhist practitioners in all of them. Maybe not a lot, but some. Yeah. And how do you practice in that situation? Yeah. I talked when I was in China, mainland. I talked to some people who lived through the Cultural Revolution, where the young people were encouraged to go out and basically destroy anything that was old. Yeah. So they destroyed monasteries. Yeah, it was total chaos in the country. Real total chaos. And then there was a famine in the middle of it, and I forget how many million people died in that famine. And this all happened in my lifetime. It's not like ancient history. Yeah, I know you think my life is ancient history. Yeah. So I talked to some of those people, and it's what is so amazing is how resilient some of them are. And you can really see that the people who knew how to have a strong mind that is not full of fear or anxiety, they were able to handle the external situation that was an obstacle to their practice. I met some nuns in particular, and the Red Guard occupied their monastery, turned it into a factory, made them wear lay clothes, and they had to go to communist re-education camps. Any of you hear stories about the communist re-education camps? It's gruesome. They attack you up front. Your friends and relatives attack you because everybody gets points for exposing how other people are bourgeois and don't have the correct communist mentality. So this happens now, but it was not as much as during the Cultural Revolution. And they sent many of the students from the universities out to work in the countryside because they said that the students were too bourgeois. They needed to learn, what the experience of the general population was. Actually, that I think is a good thing. I don't think the way the communist government went about organizing that is good, making everybody do it and shipping them out on a moment's notice. But I think it's quite good for young people to be in settings that are outside the ones where they grew up, where they can really learn more about life. Anyway, so these nuns were, they were made to leave their nunnery. They also, they told me that they had to wear these big placards. You know how sometimes in our countries, when a business wants to advertise something, they have somebody walk around, it's kind of silly, with a big piece of wood in front and a big piece of in back with slogans and everything, about what you're going to get if you eat at Joe's barbecue. So these nuns had to wear those placards, but the placards said, I'm bourgeois. I confess that I, don't honor Mao sufficiently. They have to put all these confessions on there and self-criticize themselves publicly like that, because that was what the re-education camps did. Now imagine if you were in that situation, how would you practice the Dharma? How would you keep your mind sane? How would you keep your mind from getting totally depressed and feeling despair? And, you know, if everybody else around you is living through that too, you know, then what are you going to do with your mind? Yeah. So those three nuns, somehow through their practice, they did something with their minds, and they endured that for all the years that it went on. I also read the story of one woman who was the daughter of, because Shell Oil Company invested in China after, you know, the British went in and kind of, you know, took some things and gained economic advantages and so on. And so the British opened Shell Oil. And so her father, she was Chinese, her father was an executive or somebody in that. They had a very nice house. Yeah, the Red Guard came and kicked them out of the house, tore the house apart, put her in prison, and she was in prison for many years. And it was a total shock to her system because she had experienced a nice middle-class life, you know, and in China, in those days when China was really poor, that was, you know, incredible fortune that she had. And she managed to endure the prison situation for all the years that she was in. And I read her autobiography. I can't remember the name of it now, but she made the comment that she saw that the people who had strong minds were able to endure the situation. People who had weak minds, they died very quickly. Yeah. So that somebody's life or death really depended on their attitude more than, you know, what the physical situation, because they were all in a very bad physical situation. Yeah. So it really, you know, makes us ask the question, well, you know, what am I going to do? I'm in a prison. Nobody else is a Buddhist practitioner. My teachers aren't here. My Dharma friends aren't here. I don't have any books. All I have is what's in my own mind. What am I going to do? Yeah. So I think personally that it's very helpful for us to think about those situations and think about, well, how would I deal with my mind? How would I keep myself from just falling into despair and getting depressed? Yeah. And to really study the mind training teachings and think of what you would do. Yeah. Anybody have any ideas what they would do? Nobody has ideas? Then you're all going to be in big trouble if that ever happens to you. Which I hope it doesn't, but we never know. I mean, okay. So, you know, in terms of overcoming obstacles like that, what I was mentioning was rather extreme, but I still think it's very helpful. Think of how would I, you know, do that? Well, thank goodness we have visualization practices. Yeah, and you can visualize the Buddha and all of the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in your prison cell with you in the space in front of you. You can bring Tara in there, and Tara is always in a good mood. Yeah, so you meditate on Tara and you say her mantra. But in a communist prison, you can't say your mantra out loud. They will beat you if you do that. It's also happened in Tibet. Yeah. So you do your mantra silently, and you visualize all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and you make offerings. When you make offerings, you visualize all these incredible, beautiful things. And so just visualizing those beautiful things and thinking of offering them to the three jewels is going to affect your mood. You're pulling yourself out of the dismal environment of that prison cell. Okay. I met one Tibetan Lama who's, he was in Tibet during the Cultural Revolution when the Chinese troops came in and started destroying monasteries and all. And his family had, they weren't nobility, but they also weren't the serfs. They were somewhere in between. But they had a nice house. Anyway, he was, along with other monks, they had to take off their robes and wear whatever prison clothes they gave. But they were imprisoned in his family's house. The family was kicked out, and so he was imprisoned in his own family house. And he told me that he did retreat while in prison, and he couldn't have a mala. You're not allowed to have your prayer beads. So he estimated, when the sun was over here in the room, how many mantra, approximately, maybe he counted on his fingers, could he do between when the sun was here and when the sun went over there. And that's the way that he kept count. So he could do 100, 1,000 of whatever mantra he was doing. Yeah, amazing, isn't it? I find that amazing. I mean, just the fact that people are reduced to that kind of state, and yet they remain happy and psychologically balanced. There's a sense of hope and optimism. So it can be done. Yeah. So if I talk more about the Tibetan experience and also about these Chinese nuns I spoke of, you really see that faith in the Buddha, faith in your teachers, makes a huge difference when you are in dire situations. Belden Gyatso, who one of the monks who wrote, what do you remember the name of his book? Fire Under the Snow. Yeah, so he was imprisoned for many years in Tibet after the communist takeover. And somehow, I can't remember now, but he got out and he went to Dharamsala. And then again, I don't know the exact circumstances, but he was able then to go to the West and tell his story. So he came to Seattle when I was there, and I heard about him being there, and he was leaving the very next day, but I called anyway and said, please, can he come, and give a talk to our group? Were you there? Yeah, so I think it was like at 6 o'clock in the morning, everybody came and he gave a talk because I felt, we have to learn from him and his experience. So he gave this beautiful talk, and after the talk, people left, and I went to prepare breakfast, and there was a little alcove, where we where we could eat. And on the alcove, on one side, I had a picture of a Chinese statue of Chenrezig that it's in our chapel. You know, you wouldn't notice that that picture. It's not gold and silver and diamonds and jewels. It's very simple, but it's it's a Kuan Yin that was at Potosan, the island of Chenrezig in China, and it's very old. I just had the picture, not the actual statue. And some sailors, I think Japanese sailors, wanted to take the statue with them to Japan because that statue, combined with prayers to Kuan Yin, kept the seas smooth and, you know, kept the sailors from danger. But the statue didn't want to go to Japan. So I forget now how the story is, if the statue spoke, but anyway, they couldn't get the statue on the ship to take it with them. Okay, so there was a picture of that Kuan Yin, and there was a picture of His Holiness on the wall facing that. So I'm in there preparing breakfast, and Peldon Gyatso is, you know, in there, and he's just looking at the picture of Chenrezig, you know, like this. I mean, not the picture of Chenrezig, the picture of His Holiness. Sorry, the two are kind of the same. So he's looking at the picture of His Holiness, just totally single pointed on that, you know. And you could see by the way he was looking and his expression that faith was what enabled him to endure everything, including the torture that he went through in Chinese prisons. Yeah, so you see this many, many times. You know, there were nuns in Tibet who they used electric prods in their private parts. There was all sorts of stuff that went on, but it was really you can see the people who had some very deep faith and confidence, either in His Holiness or in the Buddha, Chenrezig, and that enabled them to not only physically survive, but mentally survive, and even mentally thrive in a way. Yeah, because when you're in that kind of situation, it's going to push you in your practice in a way that we don't get pushed, you know. Yeah, because we're not in a dire situation. We think, oh, next life, yeah, it's not going to be that bad. I have a human life this time. I'm not a bad person. Well, I've done a few things, but it's okay. So I'll have a good rebirth next life. I don't need to really worry, and I won't die for a long time. And yeah, we have that kind of attitude. And so having the really difficult situation, very often you grow in a way that you would never grow otherwise, you know, and you can really see it in the depth of your practice. Okay, so that's talking a little bit about dealing with some of the external hindrances. Yeah, so this can be applied to whether you're sick or political problems in the country, or you know, you're housebound because of who knows what. Yeah. Also for loneliness. Yeah, loneliness can be an obstacle to practice. Yeah, when we feel lonely, yeah, many people get really lost. Yeah. Loneliness is an interesting thing. You know, we should have a discussion group on that. What is the meaning of loneliness? Yeah. And what do we do when we're lonely? Some people, when they're lonely, what do? They go out to the movies, they go to the mall and buy something. Yeah. What are there Dharma ways to deal with loneliness? I mean, there's the merit field. There's all sentient beings around us. You know, this visualization practice is really powerful in that way, because you can, you know, bring the sentient beings here and imagine benefiting them in different ways, bring the merit field here, make offerings, bow, confess, rejoice, request teachings, you know, the whole 7-limb prayer. So you can do that with your visualization. And then you don't feel so lonely. Yeah. There was one time in my practice where I really wanted a hug. I just needed a hug. Of course, I'm a nun. I can't go around, you know, somebody please hug me. That doesn't work. So I imagine a 1,000-armed Chenrezig giving me a hug with all 1,000 arms. That was great. I mean, that really, and what I called into mind is the feeling that you feel when somebody hugs you, when they care and they hug you. And so I just imagine that feeling and Chenrezig hugging me. And and it really kind of stopped the feeling of loneliness. Yeah. So, you know, to develop our mind, and you know, to know that there's ways to handle difficult situations, whether they're external or internal. Yeah. But we can't wait until the difficult situation happens. We have to learn the Dharma while we can, and then practice all these antidotes and develop some familiarity with them. Okay, let's look at some of the internal ones. So you said drowsiness. Yeah, okay. So what do you do with drowsiness? Well, if you know you're prone to drowsiness, do prostrations before your meditation session, because that not only purifies the karma that will cause your drowsiness, and that karma is such things as stepping on Dharma books, mistreating Dharma materials. Yeah. So all that kind of thing of just disregarding the Dharma, the statues, the books, all these things, you can see how that would, you know, the link between that kind of action and then your mind shutting down. Yeah, with drowsiness. So if you do prostrations, it helps to purify that karma. And you're also getting some exercise, and getting your body moving and doing the exercise is very good for you and helps keep you awake. Okay. Of course, there's always splashing cold water on our face or drinking strong tea. That always helps. Okay. Not coffee, at least not at the Abbey. Yeah. So those things are very, very helpful with drowsiness. Also, when your mind is drowsy, the energy is too low. So you want to think about something that makes your mind happy and uplifts your mind. So they say thinking about the qualities of the Buddha, is very helpful. Thinking about precious human life is helpful. Generating love for sentient beings, all these things really uplift the mind and help against drowsiness. Yeah. Okay, another one that you said was just feeling tired. Yeah, I'm tired all the time, like, yeah, who said that one? Okay, because I think feeling tired is different than drowsiness. Drowsiness, you're falling asleep, sitting there. Feeling tired is, it could be that you have some health problems and that's why you feel tired. It could be that you're not getting enough sleep or that you're getting too much sleep. Because if you get too much sleep, sometimes you feel tired. So again, that kind of general physical fatigue, if you really need extra sleep, then get the extra sleep. But when you wake up, do your practice. So don't use feeling tired as an excuse not to do your practice. Yeah, it means you may have to sleep a little bit more, but you wake up, you do your practice in the same way, go through the rest of the day and so on. And also, keeping active, keeping your body active and getting exercise, walking in nature, going outdoors, all these things can keep us from that feeling of physical tiredness. Yeah, exercise can be really good for getting your body back in shape, and one way or another can give you a lot of energy. Okay, then somebody else said making stories. I can't even read my own writing. Making time and making your Dharma practice a priority. Yeah, so how do you do that? Yeah, because not having time, and that's what we always say, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. We always have 24 hours, and we always have the choice of how to spend those 24 hours. People say, but I don't have the choice of how to spend my 24 hours. I have children, I have to drive the children. I have a job, I have to go to work. I have my parents that I have to look after. I have to feed the dog. I have to clean the house. I have to get a newsletter out in time. I have to. Okay. And we say that those 2 words, 3 words, I have to, so much, in Western culture, as if there were somebody following us, making sure that we did what they wanted us to do because we have to do that. Okay. And as a result, when we think I have to, then everything becomes kind of like a drudge. Yeah, it's I have to do. There's no joy. Yeah, because we feel like, the circumstances are I have to do. I have to do. No, you don't have to do any of it. The only thing in our life that we have to do is die. Everything else is voluntary. Think about it. It's true. The only thing that we have to do for sure is die. Yeah. But other than that, all these things that we're telling ourselves we have to do, there's nobody, holding a gun to our head saying we have to do it. Even we choose to do it. even somebody's holding a gun, we still can choose. Yeah. And I think it makes a big deal in our lives and in our practice if we realize that every single moment there's a choice. And sometimes I choose to do the things that I don't particularly feel like doing. And sometimes I choose to do the things that I don't want to do because I know that in the long term, doing them will bring me benefit and bring benefit to others. So we always have that choice. Yeah? So if we have that perspective on our life and stop the words of I have to and say I choose to, first of all, it gives us power in our lives because we're choosing what to do. Yeah, I'm choosing to go to that, or I'm choosing not to go to this. I'm choosing to say this or that, yeah, instead of I have to. So it gives us a more sense of, being self-sufficient and being able to make choices in our life, yeah? And that's quite important. And so, and then the more we own what we choose to do, then the more we see that we have responsibility for what we experience in our life. Yeah, I made certain choices to do certain things. And, in future lives, I'll get one result, the karmic result, but even now in this life, a result comes. Yeah, but I chose to do that. So if I get a result I like, then I know that, okay, that action that I chose to do brought a pleasant result. Sometimes we make a choice, we think we're going to get a good result, we get an unpleasant result, then it's a learning experience. Oh, what did I choose to do in there that didn't wind up so good? And so we have to, analyze that and figure it out so we don't make the same mistake again. And then sometimes we say, boy, my mind was totally out to lunch, or overpowered by attachment or anger. And I made decisions that were really bad. And what in the world was I thinking when I made those decisions? Well, actually, I wasn't thinking very well, but now I have this mess to deal with, but I am taking responsibility for the mess because I made certain decisions. And I'm not going through my life feeling like I'm the victim of other people's actions. Yeah. Now, some people, when they hear that, they're going to say, but there's so many things that people do that we can't control. So we don't always have so much choice in our lives about what we experience and what we do. We may not have choice about the external situations. We certainly don't, we can't control what other people say to us or what they do to us, but we always have a choice in terms of our response. Yeah. Do I respond, with anger? Do I respond with, my complaining mind that it's not fair and this shouldn't happen to me? Do I respond with compassion to the person who harmed me? Do I respond by learning about the situation and, understanding how other people operate better, and so gaining a little bit more skill for myself in how I work with other people, So our response, there's always the possibility of, us to choose. We don't have to. It's like if somebody criticizes us, we don't have to feel offended. Yeah. We think that if we're criticized, we have to feel offended. Like there's no other choice on how to feel. Somebody just tore me to bits in front of other people. I'm humiliated. You know, this is what's impinged upon me. I did not choose this. I can't control it. I'm mad. I want to retaliate. Yeah. All of that is coming from our mind, if that's how we respond, because we feel that there's no other choice to respond. Yeah, that any sentient being in their right mind would be furious and get revenge. Well, maybe most sentient beings in their crazy samsaric mind would make that choice to get angry and seek revenge. Yeah, the few people who know about karma or who are trying to cultivate love and compassion, might respond differently. So it isn't like every time some situation happens, I have to respond in a certain emotional way or with certain language. This comes back so much to our habits. Yeah, somebody doesn't say good morning. Oh, they're ignoring me. How do I know they're ignoring me? Did I ask them? Yeah, maybe they're tired. Huh? Maybe they're preoccupied with something. No, I know that when they don't say good morning, it means, that they're mad at me and they don't like me, and I'm so tired of being treated like this. Yeah, and off we go. Okay, so we have a choice there too, how we respond. The thing is, we so often lack conscientiousness. That's one of the 11 virtuous mental qualities. A mind that respects ethical conduct. Yeah, we're so often lack mindfulness and especially introspective awareness to monitor what's going on inside of us. And so we just play out our same old ways of responding to things, and then wonder why we're in the same old predicaments. Yeah. But, there's choices, but so often we don't see the choice because our mind is so overpowered with our habitual emotional reaction and the arising of some kind of affliction that we can't see the choice. So part of, what we really have to practice is monitoring what's going on in our mind and being able to catch things when they're small instead of after they've gone on for a while. So one other person said, a hindrance for their practice is ruminating. Yeah. So, when we lack the mindfulness that keeps our mind focused on what's virtuous, when we lack the introspective awareness that monitors what's going on in our mind, when we lack conscientiousness that respects virtuous ethical behavior, then, we just do the same old things and have the same old messes. But there is always a choice there. And one of the ways of the same old things that we do is we ruminate. Yeah. And we go back, oh, that person walked by me this morning and they didn't say hello. Then we go back, we analyze that. What was the expression on their face when they walked by me? Were they walking fast or slow? Were they angry when they walked by and didn't say good morning? Were they distracted? They were looking at somebody else instead of me? And we get into all the little details of the situation and analyze it to death and replay the situation in our mind. Yeah, I was standing there, they were walking, I smiled at them, they just ignored me and kept walking. And, I thought that person was a friend. And, one of my rules of the universe is, of course, friends say good morning. Yeah. So I thought that person was a friend, and they didn't say good morning, and they just kept walking and ignored me, And then we go over the situation again. Well, that also happened, last month, similar kind of situation. They didn't say good morning. And something similar also happened another day. I asked them a question and they didn't answer. Why aren't they answering my questions? Why are they ignoring me? What's wrong with me that people treat me this way? What's wrong with them that they are so rude and so obnoxious that they treat people like me this way? Analyze. We are, what do you call it? Amateur psychologists. Yeah, we analyze everybody. Yeah, that person always repeatedly doesn't acknowledge my presence. Once in a while they do. Oh, I know what it is. They're passive aggressive. Yeah, that's why they're ignoring me. That's the passive aggressive part. Yeah, they're doing this deliberately. More and more ruminating, more and more ruminating. What am I going to do? Do I just let them always act like that towards me? No, I can't. I have to do something. What can I say to them to wake them up to this? Should I sit down with them and say, you repeatedly ignore me and I think you're passive aggressive and I know the name of a really good therapist you can go to. Yeah. And I'll even drive you. Yeah. We come up with all sorts of ridiculous solutions. Yeah. And so we're writing these screenplays all the time and not even realizing it and just making up incredible stories with ourselves as the star. Yeah. So that kind of ruminating, you can take a whole meditation session doing that. Yeah. You start out maybe visualizing the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and then you remembered, oh, this morning somebody walked by and they didn't say good morning. And then you're off and running in your own psychoanalytical, fabricated story making, starring yourself. Yeah. So that's a big hindrance. And I think most of us suffer from that. Anybody else suffer from that, ruminating? Yeah. Round. So what do? Well, we need more conscientiousness. So meditate on that. Think about the benefits of having ethical conduct, the benefits of having a peaceful mind. Remember during the day to keep your mind on virtuous objects. That's mindfulness. Remember, in the morning during the day to monitor your mind and what's going on in it. And if you're ruminating, to catch it. What I do when I'm ruminating is when I catch it, I just say, drop it. Yeah, because already, the mind has rerun the video already, 10, 20 times. I don't really need to think about it anymore. Yeah, I just need, stop it, So I say that, or I say to myself, I have a precious human life. Why waste it ruminating about these ridiculous stories that I'm making up that really have no great significance for the universe full of suffering sentient beings? This person didn't say good morning. Yeah. Is that really something that's causing multiple sentient beings suffering? No, it's only causing me suffering. Yeah. If it's only causing me suffering and it's some little stupidagio because I want to feel important because everybody should notice that I'm there, then I just need to drop this and put my mind on, the plight of all sentient beings and think of what different beings are experiencing right now. And, what can I do to help? Or how can I practice to develop my qualities so that in the future I can help? Something along that line. Yeah. But when you let your ruminations continue, boy, you can, ruminate for a week, a month. Yeah, people who hold grudges, they ruminate for decades on the same thing over and over and over again. And sometimes they don't even remember what the incident was that made them so upset. All they remember is that that person is an enemy. So you're mad at them, but you can't remember why. Have you ever had that happen? Well, when I asked, my parents about, at the level of my grandparents, my grandma had several brothers and sisters, so they had some property where they went for vacation in the summer, and the brothers and sisters shared it. And I was told as a little girl, the people on the upper floor of that building, you don't talk to them. I was like this big. Why not? Aren't they our relatives? Yes, but don't talk to them. Why not? I asked my parents. Eventually, they said something to the effect of, well, your grandmother had some falling out with her sister, and those are the sister's children and grandchildren who live in that flat. Yeah. Why? What happened, Mom, that they don't talk to each other? Oh, I don't know. No. All I know is that they don't talk to each other. So there must be some good reason, good reason for that means awful reason. But the conclusion is you don't talk to those people. Yeah. That is totally nuts. Yeah. Holding on and ruminating about that. We don't talk to them. They're bad people. Why are they bad people? I don't know. They're just bad people. Yeah. Okay. Or so sometimes our ruminations are about one incident. Sometimes we collect incidents to ruminate about. Yeah. People are always treating me, fill in the blank. And then we ruminate how everybody treats us that way. Yeah. Everybody ignores me. I mean, well, why? Well, that's because the filter I have on looking at the world is interpreting everything as people ignoring me and I don't exist and I'm unimportant. Yeah. I never ask myself, do I smile at other people? Do I say hello? Am I friendly? I never ask myself that. In other words, I have nothing to do with how they're treating me. Yeah, the fact that I'm just walking around like that and people say hello to me and I just, yeah. Oh, but everybody ignores me. Well, sometimes if we were more mindful of our own thoughts and actions, we might understand why. Okay. But yeah, you can make a whole meditation session. Yeah. Ding, we're starting the session. Okay. I take refuge till I am enlightened in the Buddha. But my cousin, what's happening to my cousin? They didn't call me. They always call me. They're supposed to call me. I know they're sick. I want to help them, but they're not calling me, so I can't help them. Why aren't they calling me? Yeah. Then finally you put your hands down, meditation position. And then you go into that, oh, you know what? This happens a lot with so many people. They don't stay in touch with me. I have these friends and I want to be with them, but they don't call, or I call them. I try and make a Zoom call. They don't answer. This is, these people, they're so rude, and this is a relative, so it's even worse. And you know what? When we were little kids, they were a year older than me and they just took advantage of me when we were little kids, and now they don't call. And, and your whole life is flashing in front of you with all the times that you met this cousin since you were 3 years old, and going over all of that. And then at some point in the middle of all your ruminations, and somebody says, let's dedicate the merit. And you go, dedicate the merit? I don't think I created any merit. All I did was ruminate and get angry for that whole session. Yeah? You have that problem? Yeah. We can spend a whole session, 2 sessions, our lifetime being angry. For what purpose? Yeah. It's quite interesting when we stop. If anger, is a big distracting thing in our practice, to what purpose is my anger serving? Well, it's not serving any purpose, but I don't know what to do with it. I can't stop it. Well, then I suggest Shantideva, chapter 6, His Holiness, Healing Anger, my book, Working with Anger, and not just reading the books, but looking at all the methods in them about how to think in a more realistic, beneficial way in certain situations, and practicing that in your meditation session. Yeah. At first, you can just dream up situations that could happen, and you practice thinking like Shantideva explains how to think. Yeah. And then so you can start out with making up situations. You can also think of situations your friends have told you, if I were in that situation, how would I deal with my anger? And then, when you have some familiarity, then you also take out events that happened in your life where you're still holding on to some anger, and you really practice thinking. You take out Shantideva and you read it line by line and contemplate it in terms of, what happened to you personally. And you keep doing that until you can, let some of that anger go, because you are now familiar with another way of looking at the situation so that you don't get angry. So you're not suppressing your anger. You're looking at the situation differently. And, because you're describing it to yourself differently, then you experience it differently. You don't respond in the same way or react in the same way. Okay, but you have to put in the time to learn these methods and practice them in your meditation session, and this is what real Dharma practice is. Yeah, Lama Zopa used to say real Dharma practice means counteracting your afflictions. That's real Dharma practice. Yeah, we can sit there, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Oh, I created so much merit, but our mind hasn't changed. Yeah. So changing the mind is what real Dharma practice is. Yeah. Everything else is an assistant to that. Yeah. So wearing robes doesn't mean that you're naturally going to change your mind. You have to work at it. Yeah. So that's our choice, to work at those things. And then when we can catch the anger when it's smaller, and apply the methods more easily because we're familiar with them through, familiar repetition many times, then, then we start to see the power of the Dharma and how the Dharma works and how we can use it to change our mood. Yeah, change how we look at situations, not get stuck in the same old things. And in that way, we change the karma that we create too. And, we create much more virtuous karma. Okay, we have a few minutes for questions and maybe answers. Okay, so people online, if you, I guess you have a hand function somewhere. You can raise your virtual hand, or people who are here can raise their hand too. No questions, really. Then I didn't give a very good talk. Because if I didn't challenge anybody's curiosity and you all fell asleep. Yes.
Back in the early part of your talk, Venerable,
I'm curious about the woman who said that it was her strong mind that got her through it, and what her definition is, or if it was explained in the book you read, how she described that. That quality of mind.
Yeah, she wasn't a Dharma practitioner. Yeah, but from what I remember in the book is she knew what her situation was. She knew, on one level, I mean, why she was in prison because of her family background. But she had a determination to get through the experience. In other words, I'm not going to let this kill me, because she saw that people who just said, oh, what was me? What's happening? They died very quickly because they lost all hope. And she just said, I'm going to get through this and, keep my mind steady, not let my mind go all over the place in anxiety and fantasies of horrible things. Yeah. Yeah, because, if you're in a situation like that, what does your mind do? You start thinking of all the more horrible things that could happen, and you get anxious. Yeah. And so there you are vibrating with anxiety, and, all the things you're anxious about are not happening right now, but your mind is in another place, living out, our imagination of what's going to happen. Yeah, it's very interesting when we really look at the mental states like anxiety and fear, yeah, and how future oriented they are. Yeah, they're not in the present situation. They're future oriented. And of course, with future orientation, it's the conceptual mind making stories, and then we respond with afflictions. So to watch how the mind operates to get yourself in that kind of state. And then when you know that process well, then if your mind starts to go in that direction, you can say, turn off the video, drop it. I've been there, done that, run that video gazillion times, drop it.
Kath, would you like to unmute? There's a question online, Venerable.
Okay, could you read it out for me, please?
Kath is going to ask her own question.
Wonderful being a session with you and everyone else. Earlier in the session, you said, about overcoming lack of interest in Dharma. And I thought to myself, no, I'm infinitely interested in Dharma and, daily dedication and practice. But it's really something that I've been becoming more aware lately, that I'm more interested in myself getting out of samsara than actually benefiting sentient beings. And it's something that's been becoming more pronounced subtly in my practice, which, I see it as a good thing. I see it as part of, a positive part of my journey. But I think that it is like a hindrance, get on topic, that really it's the power of myself and my own suffering. Moment to moment can overpower my passion and determination to develop bodhicitta.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Could somebody repeat the question for me? Hold on.
She's saying that she's and please correct me if I don't capture this correctly, but that she's noticed in her practice that she's really, really interested in practicing the Dharma, but that her interest in getting herself out of samsara is more stronger than her wish to help others, and so that she's seeing this as being an obstacle because this wish to focus on self-liberation is a challenge to her wish to develop bodhicitta.
Yeah, well, it's okay to start with wanting yourself to get out of samsara. Yeah, but then, and yeah, think that way, that's fine. But don't leave it at that. Want yourself to get out of samsara and then think, oh, but everybody else is in the same situation I'm in. Yeah, there's no difference between myself and others. And they want happiness as much as I do. And so in that way, the desire you have for yourself to be out of samsara, you extend that to other living beings. You might start with somebody that you're really fond of and think, do I want them to keep rotating and cycling in samsara? No, I want them to have happiness. And so then you develop an attitude of compassion. May they be free of samsara. And then you start picking individuals, developing that attitude, extending your wish to be liberated to include them as well. And in that way, you include more and more living beings, and you stretch your mind. Okay, and in that will help generate bodhicitta. Okay, good. Anything else? There. Okay, if there's no more questions, then we'll dedicate. I think.
Can you put up the slide, please? Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. So although in some ways we talked about different difficult situations in this talk, the thing that you need to know is that all of these things can be dealt with, can be looked at in a different perspective that is more virtuous and more beneficial. And, to be confident that we don't have to just feel like a victim of, what happens to us. Okay, so really study the Lamrim and the thought training teachings. It helps a lot. Okay, thank you all very much. Be well and happy.
Thank you.